This section is about using logarithms and exponentials as inverses so that you can figure out what inverse equations are. So here's our first problem. We're going to try to find the inverse of f of x equals 10 to the x plus 1. The first step, because we're trying to find inverses, is we're going to change x and y. So this is just like what we were doing last chapter. We start by changing x and y. So f of x is already y. We're going to make that x equals 10 to the y plus 1. We haven't really done anything yet except just rewritten this so that x's and y's are in opposite spots. Now we're going to clean up the yard. For this particular problem, there's nothing in the yard because it's 10 to the y plus 1. There's nothing to get rid of. Now we're going to blow up the house. Since this is a 10 with an exponent, the way we're going to blow up the house is we're going to do log base 10 of both sides of our equation. Remember, for log base 10, we don't have to write the base 10. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. On the left side, we have log of x. That doesn't go anywhere. On the right side, the log and the base 10 cancel each other out, so we have y plus 1. And then the last step is we solve for y, or clean up the inside of the house, so we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. Since log of x and 1 are not like terms, we're just going to write it this way. So finally, our inverse equation is going to look like this. The inverse is log base 10 of x minus 1. So this is our inverse equation. This is a graphical confirmation of what we have. So this was the original equation. We know that the inverse equation should be a reflection across the y equals x line. And if I look at this log equation, I notice that this is a log equation that has an asymptote at x equals 0. So I know that it doesn't have any translations that are horizontal, but it does have a translation because this is usually the x-coordinate. The x-intercept is usually at 1, but it has been translated down 1 to that new point. So this is confirmation that those are actually inverses of each other. Okay, if we're going to do the inverse when we have a different base, it's okay because now we know that the inverse of log base 7, we know that the inverse of that is going to be 7 to the x. So what we do is still the same steps. We're going to change x and y. So this becomes x equals log base 7 of y plus 5. And then we clean up the yard. For this problem, there's nothing in the yard, so we don't need to clean up the yard. And the next thing is we blow up the house. The way we blow up the house is we're going to do 7 to the power. So on the left, it becomes 7 to the x. On the right, it becomes 7 to the log base 7 of y plus 5. But the reason we did that was so that we could blow up this house. So this is going to become y plus 5 equals 7 to the x. And then our last step is to solve for y. So this becomes 7 to the x minus 5 equals y. Those are not like terms, so we're not really going to subtract. That's actually a vertical shift. So our inverse function is g inverse of x is 7 to the x minus 5. And that's our answer. Graphically, here's our log function. The log function has been translated 5 units to the left. The inverse function is exactly the same, except that it has been translated 5 units down. So it makes sense that our inverse would be 7 to the x minus 5. All right, so here are a couple to try. I would recommend that you pause the video and give them a try, and then restart after you have tried them. So pause now and come back after you've tried them. problem, I swapped x and y. And then after I swapped x and y, I blew up the house because there was nothing in the yard to clean up. And I blew up the house by doing the opposite of 3 to the x. The opposite of that is log base 3 of x. And then I'm left on the right with just y plus 2. So then I solve for y by subtracting 2, and that's my inverse function. Second one, I swapped x and y. And then I cleaned up the yard by adding 2 to both sides. And then I blew up the house by raising both sides 2 to the power. All of x plus 2 becomes the exponent. All of log base 2 of y becomes the exponent. That blows up the house, so now y is by itself. So my inverse function is g inverse of x is 2 to the x plus 2. Here's a summary. Make sure that you know that logs and exponentials are inverses of each other. So 5 to the x is the inverse of log base 5 of x. And the other way around. Make sure that as you're solving these problems, you clean up the yard before you blow up the house. You blow up the house with the inverse, and then you solve for y. All right, good luck. Have fun.